Well, good morning. Welcome to everyone here. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning in 1 hour presentation on From Manual Testing to Agentic Wizard by Paul Grossman, our expert in test automation. Thanks to you, Paul, for having the time to make this technical, highly useful presentation. My name is Magdi Hanna. I am the CEO of the International Institute for Software Testing. Just in case if you have not done any business with IIST, the International Institute for Software Testing is the leader in education-based certifications. We're specialized in education. We offer public training, on-site training, online, and we have over 100 courses touching every area of software testing and quality assurance. We can also schedule any one of those 100 courses to be offered at your company site anytime, or even offered for your team online. You can look at the website at testinginstitute.com. We have 12 different types of certifications. Every certification has its own body of knowledge, which is covered by certain courses you must complete in order to achieve the certification. I'm not going to take much of your time here. Excited to have Paul go ahead and share his knowledge and experience with you. So Paul, go ahead. I also will let Paul speak about his experience so that he can control his time. Paul, you are on. Please go ahead and share your screen, and you have the microphone.
I want to thank everybody for showing up, taking your time during the day to see this presentation. We are going to do some live demos, and if they go great, that's fantastic. If they don't, I'm going to blame it on the AI. A little bit about this presentation. It actually got modified a little bit because one of the people who was signed up for this said it's a 1 hour transformation. It's catchy, but it's not magic. I actually do magic as my side entertainment bit. He says it's bit him a couple of times, and I actually absolutely understand why that can happen. And this session is to kind of walk through a couple of things to be aware of when you're working with Agentic AI in doing code development. And we'll talk about some best practices. We're going to do a mix of best practices and how the AI can actually implement them for you and quicker. He mentions here that one problem he had was the test got parallelized. Basically, they were running in parallel, and it created some hidden interdependencies. My framework that I'm working on currently actually does one in parallel by default, and I actually turn a few of them off and run them in serial because they're using the same data, and then they're getting confused because the same record's being updated, and they're not seeing the information there. So I can understand why that would be an issue. The other one he mentioned is that an AI fixed his flaky workflow by putting retries on top. Now I always have at least one retry on every test that I have because there are rogue issues that come up. The internet is not 100% reliable. It is about 99.999%. And every once in a while, you're going to get a hit that something gives you something that you didn't expect. Not only is that, it is not reproducible, so you can't write a ticket about it. You can't take a picture of the Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster to show it to a developer. It says it's exciting, but the gap between hype and production reality is really massive. Well, I absolutely have to agree with that. Our primary goals today, we're just going to show you some tips and best practices with AI. We'll talk about how to do reporting, custom wrappers. We're going to try and do a passive error detection and also a better auto weight for better, faster execution of your test cases so that they are more reliable. And by the way, one of the things to get in mind is if you are old enough like me, you remember the day when you're in a video arcade and playing with tokens. We are actually going to be playing with tokens. And I would tell you, Addiction and Recovery is a good title here because once I turned on the Agentic AI, I got addicted to it. I was just telling it to do updates and it was just doing them. But then when my tokens ran out, I started thinking, oh my gosh, I only got 4 more days left to go, and before I get more tokens. So I had to figure out ways to get those. So do keep in mind, it's free for the first hit, but after that, after your first 300 hits, it may cost you, or you may have to just kind of cut back a little bit or use a lesser AI. A little bit about myself. I have been designing frameworks since 2001, and IST was one of the first courses that I had that helped me demonstrate a multi-million-dollar ROI for my company. I'm a published author. I have this book called The Enhanced Test Automation with WebDriver. And some of the tips and tricks I'm going to show you today are actually in that book. So if you want to look at it and you're like, hey, I'm not a WebDriver IO guy, guess what? The AI can take the code that's there and convert it to whatever language you happen to be working at. One of the things that may surprise you, I stopped coding back in 2023, mostly because of a company called TestRigger. They had a cool thing, and they're not the only ones who do this, but basically it is codeless automation. If you can type the words click add to cart, you are on the automation team and you're building tests that afternoon. I also speak as a conference at a couple of places, taking an eyeball on QAI Quest. Keep that one in mind because there will be a exam coming up shortly. So first thing I want to mention is what we're going to go through to start off with is where does AI really shine? What is an agentic AI and how is it lowering the playing field? We'll talk about a litmus test to see if your LLM is hallucinating. And we'll talk a little bit also about the myths of automation and bottom-up design. Now, where automation AI actually really shines is an example here. This is an example from TestRigger that I love showing off. The test asks me to check the page contains a woman pointing. Now, I kind of see a woman. There is a pointing with the arm extended and it's saying using AI. What does the response come back? It says there appears to be a person with long dark hair wearing a light colored top and with their arm extended outward, and it could be interpreted as a pointing gesture in an office or workspace. Absolutely spot on. This is an okay demo, but the neater ones is when you have a table in front of you and says, hey, add up the table and make sure the totals are correct. And it does that too. Which means I don't have to sit there and try and write code anymore to figure out where a table is, what the rows are, what the columns are, and all that stuff. And where the cell is and what the cell value is and if there's subcells. No, just let the AI look at it and go, yeah, you're right. So that is the advantage we've got with AI, but it's not agentic AI. That's just standard validations from AI. There are low-code alternatives. As I said, I played around with TestRigger. I played around with all these other tools out here. There's even software, Velocity Corp. They actually ingest documents and then create test cases based on them. Cool thing about having something in the cloud is that there's no browser or operating system maintenance you have to keep up to date. Test cases can be created by that document injection, and coding can now be generated by agentic AI. So you don't even have to know how to write the code. You can just basically ask the AI to do it, give it enough descriptions and a good prompt, and you'll probably get something very, very good. Now, I mentioned earlier that AI is actually leveling the playing field. What I mean by that is that you may not necessarily have to use a paid tool. You can go back to using free open source tools like Selenium or Playwright in order to do your automation. And now, because of agentic AI, even non-technical users can write the code to build the framework. The thing is, you need to know what are some of the good tips and things to avoid, and that's why you're here at this conference today, this session. I will mention I've used WebSim, which is a cool little website. I recommend you check it out, that you can build websites. You just describe it to an AI, and it will go and build a website for you. I have one of those actually available on this presentation, and we'll be testing against it. And the other cool thing is feature requests. If you're building your own automation framework inside of something like Selenium or Playwright, and you think, I have a feature request, I need to have some sort of way to do a custom breakpoint. You can just ask the AI and have it populate in there and then tweak it a bit. You don't have to wait months or years for somebody at a company to, look and review your feature request and have it implemented into their product. And the other last cool thing is, even if when you build this in here, it'll often build unit tests that will be used to create new tests to test the new framework features. Now, the downside is that the AI can go overboard, and it can also perform multiple iterations, consuming all those tokens, saying, I got a better version. Oh, wait, I even got another better version. And you never had a chance to even see if the first or second one were good enough to handle your the requests you're looking for. So as I mentioned earlier, we all worry about hallucinations with our AI. So here's a way that you can do a litmus test on the accuracy with an LLM. It is ask a question of some topic that you know really well. And well, the best one I know of, because I'm out there, is who is Paul Grossman in test automation? And I went and looked at Claude, and Claude happened to note that I'm known as the dark arts wizard, and I was at the PSQT and the Quam conferences out in Maryland, and QAI Quest. There's that answer that we were looking for. This is doing really good. Now, there's a whole lot of different providers that are out there. OpenAI is the one that gives you ChatGPT. I'm going to say honestly, I think it's not as smart as Claude. I prefer Claude, but it may improve in the future. But there's also another one out there called DeepSeek. So I asked the same question. Who is Paul Grossman? It said, I apparently am the architect of the IBM Rational Robot back in the 80s and early 90s when I was just a kid. I also am the creator of the SQA basic language. So we're going to mark this one as an extra epic fail on that. I don't use DeepSeek, and this is a way to do this. As I said, don't ask this question. Ask a question about something that you are passionate about and you know the correct answers, and see how well the AI comes up with that. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about bottom-up design. We want to build a happy path, which we're going to do a login test with known good credentials. And once that's built, I want to go and create a custom console logger. That's the very bottom of this frame. That's the very bottom where we're going. We're going to report that also to Allure. And we also want to have some custom wrappers at the next level that would use the console logging in order to tell us what we filled, what we selected, what we clicked on. And then build a login workflow with a recovery loop. And then ultimately have a custom assert that we logged in. Now, if we had time more than an hour, we could go into how to do negative tests and edge cases and stuff, and then inject those into our CI/CD flow. But from top to bottom, that's basically how this goes. And how much can we build of this in an hour? Just a little item. This is the bottom-up framework, and we're starting at the very bottom, moving our way up. And the first thing we got down there is, well, let's see, the reporting might be vague, and we have sketchy documentation. So the first thing I would say, the best use of agentic AI is to document your code. I mean, literally right now, I've just taken over a project which was 2 years in flight, and I had about 90 minutes of overlap time to talk with the guy who originally worked on it for those 2 years. And he did some documentation, but I wasn't exactly sure how the framework was working. And I'm using AI to basically go through and fill in this information and tell me, hey, what is this actually doing? Give me your opinion. Now, it's not always accurate, but I will take 80 to 90% accuracy over none, and me sitting there trying to understand what's going on in my documentation. So it's a good thing to point to start. One of the myths we have over there is test automation is easy. I mean, all it is we're going to run it on Windows, on the Chrome. We'll use Cypress, or maybe we'll pay for a product like QA Complete. We'll get a free IDE like Eclipse, and all we really have to do is choose what language: Java, JavaScript, C#, C++, and work with that. The only thing is that a couple of weeks, a couple of months go by, and someone's going to mention, by the way, did you know we had a mainframe? We need to automate that. Oh, we've got an app that's on the iPhones, on Androids. We need to test that. We want to make sure that our users are working good, so we are working with Firefox and Safari, which means we're going to have to run on a Mac, which just expanded how many test cases you're running. Maybe Cypress Selenium isn't Cypress isn't really the thing to look at. Maybe we want to look at Selenium. So now you're switching different tools and all frameworks there. And then there's other tools out there like Software Velocity Corp or Autonomous from Applitools, who are giving you the ability to have non-technical people create your scripts using AI. Maybe we're switching over there. And maybe it turns out Eclipse isn't the big thing. It was free, but it was not building your project every 3 days and you're pulling your hair out. Maybe Visual Studio Code is better. So maybe you're switching there. Maybe Java isn't the best language. It's actually rather dense. And maybe we switch over to something a little bit easier like TestScript or JavaScript with Node involved in that whole thing. And you think that's done, but now you got to take all your test cases and put them into a CI/CD track. So maybe you're using GitHub or GitLab in order to execute your tests that are connected on a pipeline after the developers pushed out their new application. Definitely need to test on Opera. Well, the CEO came over and said, Opera needs to be tested. We have 0.1% of our users using Opera, and we need to make sure that they're supported. Okay. Visual Studio Code, maybe you're not happy with that. Maybe you go on to use something from JetBrains. Then you also have to choose your actual framework. Is it going to be Jest or Mocha, depending on if you want to do hard asserts or soft asserts and get multiple validations on a page, and ultimately putting it out to some sort of dashboard like Allure. And we didn't even talk about the database. So we're hoping that our tools can handle whatever database that we happen to be working with. It's Hadoop or Postgre or Oracle or SQL Server. It is not easy because every decision you make impacts everything else that's down the line. So I want to talk about that programming language. There's a myth there. It's that it has to match that the language that the app is being used. These are actual quotes people have told me. Java is the most popular coding language. So naturally, your automation framework should be in Java. Or the dev is using JavaScript to build the web application. So naturally, JavaScript is the language you should be using. The best one over here will be easier when dev takes over the testing. Wow, that's like putting the fox in front to protect the hen house. Dev loves their babies. Their application is their babies, just like my automation framework is my baby. And we all think our babies are perfect and beautiful, and there's no problems. And we get very offended if someone points out, hey, your baby's an ugly baby. You have to say it in a nice way when you're talking to them. Why would dev ever take over the testing? I mean, heck, they probably don't. They have too much work on their plate already trying to put together this application. It's our point, at our responsibility in the QA department to kind of relieve that. Java, as I mentioned, is very verbose. C# and JavaScript, they're asynchronous. So one of the downsides is you have to put an async and a wait statement in every single one of them to prevent them from operating the way that works best for the internet. The internet has multiple streams, so things come together to build a page very quickly. Things execute out of order. You do that in a test automation framework. Well, the login might be putting in the password, clicking the login, trying to put in the username, and then validating that you logged in. And in that order, it will just basically come back and say, I didn't log in correctly. So a little extra stuff has to be put in there on that. So my recommendation, if you're looking for languages, before you look at Java, take a look at Python, TypeScript, or C# as the languages you want. I've got a litmus test for a language as well. There's one thing that I absolutely love in TypeScript and JavaScript, and that is template literals, which means you can use an accent mark to create a string. Everybody knows you can create a string with double quotes or even 2 single quotes. But in this case, I've got a string called Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at Moe's Tavern. Moe's got a single quote, so I can't use a single quote to put this around the string. And The Rock has 2 double quotes, so I can't use double quotes around this string. And I'd have to go and put plus signs and stuff. If you got a template literal, you can say, hey, these accent marks, just we'll put the quotes and the double quotes and single quotes in there. And then you can actually use this as a variable inside of another template literal saying, hey, $sign this string, and it'll all say at the end, meet Dwayne The Rock Johnson at Moe's Tavern, and everything is all happy. As I mentioned, JavaScript, TypeScript does it, Python does it as well, and so does C#. And those are the three reasons why I think those are a good choices for automation here. Automation languages. So talking a little bit about agentic AI, there are three types that are currently out there, and hey, maybe there's more coming along the way. Assistive AI. This is when code is helping you with code completion and suggestions and explanations. Copilot and ChatGPT both do that. Generative AI is when, hey, I'm going to go off to ChatGPT or Perplexity and say, hey, can you write me a function that does this? And it'll do it for you. And then lastly, agentic AI, which is just insane, where it's like, can you go do this for me? And I've not tried Devin, and I'm going to admit that this came from an AI. So we're going to have to go take a look at Devin, see what's doing all that stuff. But all this stuff is actually built into your most common automation IDEs like Visual Studio Code and JetBrains, so you can actually use it. The pro on this is it learns from your coding style. You type in one thing and it notices something similar that you're probably going to go change. It'll try and change it for you. But it can be an expensive addiction. As I mentioned, it does better approaches, and it can actually overcomplicate solutions if you don't tell it what to do. We've been talking for a little bit, so let's see some demos. Let's see if we can build an agent over here, and I'm going to go bring up my studio over here. I need to add a folder over here, so I've got this IST demo empty. I'm going to add that in there. And then I am going to go over here and give it a nice prompt. So I'm going to go pull up a prompt. Now this prompt is going to be kind of long, but I want to make sure that I get as much as I can in this. Keep in mind, look, you've got a couple of different tools here. I can use ChatGPT 4.0, and it doesn't cost me anything. It doesn't cost a token. But I can use Claude Sonnet 3.5, which is pretty smart. In fact, it's up to Claude 4.0. I have to just get it in there. And I want to switch from ask mode, which is just giving me the code in this area over here. I want to switch it to agent mode. Let's take a look at what I'm going to ask you to do. Build a TypeScript Playwright framework and go to this website, IST login. Let's take a look at what that is real quick. Let me see if I can bring up this is what it looks like over here. This is our login. And we're going to put in a username and a password like this. We'll just show you what it actually looks like. I'll put admin as the password, and I will click login. It gives me a little spinner. And this thing warns me that that's a known password out there. And then it says, hello, admin, and I'll log out. So in my description over here, I'll say create a custom wrappers for fill and click, create a login, create only 2 tests that log in with the admin and user 10. For both the username and passwords. And I want to console log out some stuff. I want to say if it passes, if it sees hello within 5 seconds, and if it doesn't see hello within 5 seconds, it will say, hey, there's a problem. You're probably blowing your SLA, your service level agreement. And I'm going to also implement a base page to store common functions that are going on. Let's see how well this goes. So this is sitting here thinking about it, chugging away, working through this, and it should come back and say, all right, I'm going to help you create this framework. And it sure did. It says, first of all, open an empty folder to continue. It requires, I'm going to click on continue, and guess what? It just opened this for me, and I don't want the dry run. I want to go to, we'll say C:, I'll get that path over. It's in my repos, and we'll go to repos, and we'll use this empty one here. That's our file folder. Select empty folder. All right, I brought it in and said, fantastic. Now I'm going to go create some files for you. And it's saying, do you want me to continue with this? Yeah, continue with the setup. So I don't even have to touch anything. That's what Agentic AI does. It is absolutely amazing. It's generating a plan to create a new workspace. It's going to go over here into my console and will tell me what I need to do to add in there. In fact, if you don't have what you need to bring in, it will actually go and do the executions in the console to do this. It's saying, let's go initialize Playwright with the latest version over here. It just typed it in there. I just had to click on that. Well, I got to do a few other things over here. I do want TypeScript. I do want to put the end-to-end test cases and tests. I don't want GitHub Actions for this thing. And do I want to install the browsers? Yeah, absolutely. Please go put that in there. And look, it's building up my pages over here. It is building up the packages. These are all the things that are being added, and it's adding them as it goes along. And it's got pages, it's got my tests, it's already got an example test in there. And this example test is going to Playwright dev. We don't care about that. We want to go and have it build out a test case over here. So it's creating a base page over here. There's our base page, putting that in there. I like this. It's all this stuff is green, meaning that it is being completed and put together automatically for me. It's using the fill and waiting for selectors and kind of doing this. There's a custom fill, a custom click that I asked it to create, and it's going to wait, have a custom version of wait for element with a timeout that I can use. It's telling me all sorts of updates on that. Here's my login page, and it's actually going to go out there and do this login, custom fill the username, the password, and click on this button. And then it's going to wait for this element with a timeout for the hello selector to appear. I like all this. I'm going to keep this. This is good stuff. I'll keep all these new things. And it says, do you want me to run this? Sure, we'll let it run. Normally, I would go over here to my tests and have it go and run it itself. There's my tests. And we'll see it's got the example in there that we saw. And then here's all the login tests that is already created, logging with an admin credentials and with the user 10 credentials. And did anybody actually see a browser pop? I didn't. And that's probably because it is potentially running in headless mode, which I'm not a fan of because it runs so much faster, you're going to end up with faster results. It did come up and say, hey, here's your Playwright test results. It created a couple. It did it in Chrome. It did it in Firefox, and it also did it on WebKit, which is the secret code for Apple's browser. And so it took about 30 seconds. That seems a little while, but it did it, but it actually failed all these. I'm not happy with that, but that's okay. That's why we're here. So we're going to go, and it's saying you can run the test with the following command. I'm running those. So I am going to ask it. We're going to say, hey, stop for a moment here because I had to hit Control-C to kill it. I'm going to say, do not run headless, and we'll do that. And it'll go back and it'll take a look at my scripts and say, hey, well, let's take a peek at what's going on and see what we can do to make you happy, buddy. All right, I'm going to go back over to our presentation over here because we've done our initial setup using AI. Let's talk a little bit about why is Playwright replacing Selenium? What is the big thing behind that, if you're actually wondering? And I can tell you what it is. There's two. First of all, Selenium has only 8 ways to find an element. And of those 8 ways, almost 99% of the time, we're using an XPath to go find it because we can use a text in there to say, go find add to cart. CSS selector, absolutely. Someone will say, yes, you need CSS selector, but you can't use a text in a CSS selector to go and find an element. You have to use some other internal name that might be changing from time to time. Now, if you take a look at locators in Playwright, they have 10 different ways, not 8, and a whole bunch of different ones. You can look from an Arial role. You can look by text and say, I'm looking for something that has order completed. You can get by a label or even a type. The role is a button, or and that will pull back a button or even a link. And in other cases, one other thing is that sometimes you want to count how many of these are here, how many elements are here. and it automatically pops in there and says you should have a count of 3 elements that match this description. I don't have to build that by hand. In fact, you can build in self-healing by asking the AI, because there's so many different ways, saying, okay, if you didn't find hello world with a full text mess, try a case insensitive one with a lowercase h. Try and find it inside of some other text. This is fantastic. And multiple conditions. One other thing I'll point out down here, this is a CSS. I'm sorry, that's a multiple if I'm looking for hello and world in there. So it continues both of those. And I think I did pass it up over here somewhere. Oh yeah, these are CSS locators. So you can actually use text inside of a CSS. It's up here, enhanced CSS. You can use a CSS plus add in text and go find it, which you can't do with Selenium, at least not at the moment, last time I looked. And there's tons of validations that you can do in here. You can validate something's enabled, it's visible, it's checked. And here's Selenium's dirty little secret. The real problem is waiting. Selenium has no less than 4 different ways of waiting: fluent, implicit, explicit waits, and an explicit sleep, which you never want to ever use on that one. You can use any one of these, but you have to pick one to go with it. If you start to mix and match, almost guaranteed you will come up with a script that will wait up to 30 seconds for every element to appear. And then you'll be wondering, why in the world is that doing that? There's no such issue. That was kind of overthought on that one. Playwright also has auto weight reduce. Now, this is a myth. It says it reduces flakiness. It really doesn't, because there are so many reasons why something might go wrong with the connection in the internet that you have to have some way of handling it. It doesn't really eliminate that. It doesn't eliminate that flakiness. But it does, check to see that if it's interacting with an element before it does a click, a fill, or a select option, it'll say, is it visible, enabled, stable, not animating, and ready to receive events. The downside is most of us who have been developing for automation for most of these years usually use is visible and is enabled. And those do not do any of these checks. They just return immediately saying, yeah, it is visible. It's not. It is enabled. And you can end up having problems with that. So I always go and create a a wrapper for those click and fills. And that's why you saw when I was running the code, I asked it to create a wrapper. Another myth, automation is super fast. Sure, it types 380 words per minute, which is kind of cool. However, everyone thinks it runs like 10 times faster than manual testing. In some cases it does, but it's kind of like putting a brick on the gas pedal of a car on a straightaway. What's more likely is a really high-end Bugatti on a mountain with hairpin turns, and the AI can with hairpins, which means you have to apply the brakes at some point. The bridge is sometimes up or down. There's pedestrians in the way. You don't want to run them over. You want to get to the end point, to your destination, yes, as fast as possible. But if the faster you try and make it go, the more likely you're going to go off the rails at some point. Better approach is to have multiple browsers running a little slower, but all running in parallel on that to get more test cases done at the same time. And the reality is AI can sometimes actually be twice as slow as a manual tester as it sits there and tries to figure out what button you were looking for. The button was add to cart, and now it's add to my cart. It can actually slow things down if it doesn't have something in the background actually building a dynamic object repository that it can use to speed things up. So my tip, always take accuracy over speed. Consider it like AI is a salt shaker and your bowl of soup is your test. Without any salt, it's kind of boring. With a little bit of salt, with a little added in there, it's going to make things more entertaining. If you put the entire container of salt in there, nobody likes the soup, and it's just it becomes a slurry and it's awful. All right. Custom logging, text-based icons. So here's one of the things I want to add into my framework. We have console log and console error, and do we have to sit there and figure out which one I'm gonna use when I do this? Why just build my own version of custom log and have it say report out stuff like put in an icon with an X or a checkbox when when it's passing or fail, when it sees the word pass or it sees the word fail, and put a check mark in there. Let's go see how this works. I'm going to go see if I can get the console log to do this. All right, this guy was saying, hey, do you want to run this? I'm like, no, that's okay. I trust you did it right. I want to have a console log. Let's see if I have a descriptor. I want to add some console.log. Console.logging. Log statements. So I'll ask it to add that in there. And I'll say, oh yeah, I'll add some things to your test. Let's go see. Maybe I'm actually already, they might be already doing that. I'm not actually looking at the tests over here. Here's our login. Yeah, there's nothing actually logging out. So it's looking at the login page and login spec. And it's going to add a little bit to our login page. And I think we also wanted to add in some stuff over here. I'll do some stuff for myself. I'll say console.log. And you'll notice it's actually adding some stuff here. And it actually automatically said attempting login with admin credentials. And so starting admin, it kind of changed its mind. Maybe you didn't want that. I can just hit the tab key and it becomes a line. And look at this. It learned that I put this in here and it said, yeah, you probably want to do the user 10 down here as well. Yep, I am. Now I just got over here and just put in a couple more console logs. And look what this thing is doing, putting emojis in there. I don't want freaking emojis in there. And it also generated a bunch of errors. It broke something. How could it break something? Oh, come on. I apologize for the error in the last edit. Let me fix the test file. Okay, it's fixing the text file. I am going to go back over to see where I can add in. This is navigating. And I'm going to try and get back to, I had the start, the admin test. Oh yes, I was over here saying I want to add in this console. I didn't even have to type anything. It just figured out that if I did it up here, I probably want it down there. Let's see. I've got 0 errors, no problems, which is a good thing. So now it's going to add some test contents. It's adding a little bit more. I think we should run this and see how it looks. Yeah, it added some stuff. I will keep all this and I'm going to go over here and go run this test over here and see if we actually get a browser that pops up. I like that browser. There's our site, not running headless anymore. Does it put in the username and the password? It's thinking about it. Should be a lot faster than this. Let's take a look at what that login is actually doing. We're doing a new login page. It's only creating this. And it's going to the login. We're going to go over here to our definition and see what exactly it's doing. It's filling in the information. It's starting the admin. It's filling in the username. And it's waiting for a username called username that's on there. I don't think that actually exists as a element. So we're going to go and debug that real quick and see what we can get. I'm going to go and hit debug, and I'm going to put a stop point over here. And we'll see what the username is supposed to be for a description. I'm going to go over here to Playwright and click on locator, and we're going to take this up. And now we have this locator over here. The actual thing should be described as name is username, and it's by a role, and it should copy this here. So what we're going to do is use the locator that it actually came up with. Look at that. It even identified that it's inside of an iframe that might be causing us issues. I like this. This is a very smart way of creating our items over here. But I am not really crazy about this locator, because what I really wanted to do was I wanted to have that custom, a custom wrapper. So I'm going to have it create a custom wrapper, and then we'll come back to that in a moment. I'm going to say create a custom wrapper, make it pass or fail, and send a message to a lore report, and it must be named console log with the underscore. We're going to come back from that. We'll go back over to our PowerPoint over here. So this is the code that I wanted to use that it actually created. You'll also notice that it is putting in those darn emojis wherever. It thought, hey, if you want to put an emoji here and there, you probably want to put it everywhere. And I'll have to tell it, no, don't do that. Coding console logger now, what I asked it to do was use console log, create stuff to passes in green, fails in red, and expected and actual outputs. Now that's actually in a report. The devil is in the lack of details. That's our biggest problem, is that you can have, I always want to have something that is very descriptive. We expected correct title, but got bogus instead, or expected true, but got false. I hate anything like this, unless it's a company with a little bit of description. It says the button submit should be visible. There is no submit button. It's a login button. The devil's in the details more. Doing a custom assert, I will do that as well, where we have the actual result and the expected result and the evaluation. It contains, it exists. I'm sorry, it contains, it is starts with, ends with, is exactly, and always have some sort of detail what you're trying to do so that you actually get information like this. You never want to write a generic validation. The result was true. You can actually tell the AI, don't write anything like that. In fact, force me to put in some sort of detail when I use this function. Do have a variable in almost every line of output, and that will give you a lot more information about what you're actually going for when you do this. And as I said, always write a custom wrapper. Now, once we've done this, we want to report, we want to send this stuff out, not just to the console because it's just the developers who use it. I want to be able to show it to my boss, and my boss, maybe he wants to see in a JUnit reporter. Gosh, that's boring looking. You know, if you're running a GitHub Actions report, will look a lot like this, saying it was trying to figure out if it was authenticated or not. But one of the ones I like is Allure because it has historical reporting. You can see exactly what test cases are, how they're divided up, and if they are being executed. And one of the things I can do is that inside of that custom reporter, I can actually tell it to go and send this information out to Allure. Let's go take a look and see how our process is cooking over here. It says we have to install Allure. Well, okay, go install Allure. Sounds good to me. Look at that, npm install. I probably have to look it up in on a website somewhere to figure out what the exact line was. And it installed it and also checked no vulnerabilities, which is a relief to my IT department, let me tell you. Look at that. It changed all the things to console.log. And as soon as it decides to finish up that, we'll go give it a run. And it's thinking about it. And hopefully it's created a console log. It does all these things. And we'll keep all of this, keep all that. Let's give this another run and see what we get this time. If I'm going to go and hit this out and see what we get output over here. There's our nice little browser, and it is filling the information, waiting for this element, starting the admin, and it's not showing anything in green or red because we're not doing any checks or validations at the moment. Create a unit test for the console log. I'll have it do that. All right. I'm going to come back to that. We're going to get to see, do some red and green output as we chug along. This is actually from the framework. It doesn't count. So I am going to go back over to our presentation and continue on a little bit more. So it does have Allure now, reporting out to Allure, which is kind of cool. Where do you want to store these things? The custom go-tos, fill, select, and click and assert should be in your base page, so it's shared with every page out there. And then fixtures are embedded in, are basically functions that are part of the framework, and you don't have to add them in every time. And in fact, you could add a custom breakpoint. By the way, AI might forget these functions exist and try to recreate copies of them. That's a warning to keep an eyeball out for. I've seen that happen. Did you know that 80% of what you can do in automation is just 6 actions? It's navigate, populate, selectate, that didn't come out right, activate, validate, and sounds like we have, hey, the Daleks there doing our automation. And in fact, the last thing you want to do is you also have synchronization to make sure that you want to wait until the page is ready. I've got about 5 minutes left on this. So what could possibly go wrong when you're filling or clicking or interacting with anything? Well, items could be missing. The site can't be reached. Oh, that's fun. I really didn't intend to have that there. Or the site is completely blank over here. So what you want to do, if you the best way to do this is to set up a login, and you want to loop around when you're waiting for a page, for a custom page. You want to count the elements that are on the page, wait 150 milliseconds, and count again. We don't wait a second. We never wait more than a second. And exit after 3 static values. It's the same count on there, or you reach the timeout. And then if the count is, you should take a look at what the blank page is and refresh the browser. If the count is, this says greater than 20, it should be less than 20. My apologies on the slide. And if it's less than 20, it means the page was probably blank. We had 0 here, we might have 8 here. And you want to return the object count and include in the custom click that we created. So here's our loop. I really have no idea why this guy is doing this. It's part of a different thing. I'm so sorry. There's our object count being less than 20. Here's our loop. We go to navigate, fill in the usernames, and click on the login, and then have that wait for page. Every click should have the custom wait for page, and it takes 3/4 of a second to determine if the page is ready. And you can always add in the other validations. If the click failed, it should go and say, okay, let's try and wait a little bit longer. If the page has something wrong with it, then you could relaunch the browser and loop up to 3 times in trying to get a new browser in there and see what happened in order to kind of refresh, just like manual testers do. The right tool for the right job. If you're looking for elements, don't use the dev tools over here. You may have been taught this. These usually are brittle, especially if you see something in square brackets or nth child. Number 2 saying click me. It's not going to be a good thing. The better thing to do is to, one, use Playwright, which I just showed you. You can use that locator to go grab an element and use its locators. But even better is Selectors Hub. It's a Chrome extension. And what it will do is it will give you a description of how to identify it. It'll even tell you if the element is in an iframe. It'll tell you how many unique matches out there. Green is good. And then you could also pick up short-lived spinner elements by telling it to pause the page and let the spinner sit there for a while so you can pick up the spinner and find out exactly what it's made of. DevTools does have a good use. It's on the network tab. Anything, if you ever see a browser, something looks funny, go to the DevTools network tab. And if you see something in red, screen capture it. You may not understand what it is, but throw it to a developer. They will do backflips going, oh my gosh, you found a page document. Even if you never clicked on it, they'll say, oh, that's something that I need to go and address. And guess what? You can actually do Agentic AI can perform and create a passive error listener out there. You can ask it to go and create that. And in fact, this is what it looks like over here. Now I'm going a little fast. I can hear, I think, Magdi on the mic there, and we are just down to our last demo item. So we are going through our Hello World of Test Automation, which is a login. We have our spinner out there. And if I were to log in with the word error, it would give me an error. And if I clicked reload and clicked in as login again, we would see it actually successfully log in because I told the website WebSim to build it just like that. Also, if I had a login with user 20, it would spin here for 20 seconds. So, spoiler alert. When we did waiting for a page load, one of the things that I recommend you do is look for a count of elements, the links, buttons, images. Not everything. If you select everything, it will sit there for about 3 seconds trying to find every element. This is a nice optimized list of divs, filters, inboxes, and list box. And usually about less than 21 elements indicates that there is a blank page. You can also see down here, we have a warning page. We even inject SLAs saying, hey, this should have built in 5 seconds, but it took 20 seconds to build it. Another thing you build into your frameworks with that wait for page load is waiting for the objects to stabilize. And it says, hey, I was looking for 21 elements. And right now on this page, there's only 20, whether they're visible or not. And that's a good way to make your automation stable. This is the way you're going to go and count those elements. Again, 250 milliseconds, going over and over again, seeing how many objects you can find up until you hit your SLA. Ask the AI to just create it for you, and it can do that. Other issues that happen, site can't be reached for some reason. It happens, but it's not something that's reproducible, but your automation can go and find that. As I mentioned, never use the actual click. You should have one click, one select, all inside of a wrapper, and then use the wrappers to do this to validate something's visible, enabled, and go click on it, and then assert out if the thing was not enabled or did not exist when you did it, and always have, as I suggest, a custom assert. Sample object validations, we would definitely want to have something that says, hey, check the button is valid by saying it's enabled and performing the click. There could be other issues that we never think about, so error handling always must be implemented in there with a try catch to catch anything else that might be I haven't even thought of, that aside from it not being visible or there. And why do we use custom wrappers? Because it actually makes things a little bit easier. You might want to check to see if the element is in the viewport, enabled, and click. If it's not in the viewport, have it scroll up or click on it, set focus on it. And in this case, we're looking for a page build to see if we failed, we will do the page build. And if we are also on fail, we want to output the console log, give it at least 2 shots on clicking an element and have that custom breakpoint in there. One of the other things I also do, instead of actually doing these visibility checks over here immediately, I try and take a click first and catch errors later approach. I go and click this immediately because the page might be building super quickly or didn't even do a build. That's the fastest you can get your framework to do. If it's not there, if it's not visible, you can always go in the catch and say, hey, is it visible? Is it enabled? And even do a wait for page for it to become on the screen. Last thing is our custom breakpoint. This is something cool I came across just in the last few weeks. I was trying to figure out some way, can we test with race conditions? So there's a problem, is that I'm running all these tests in parallel. They might have race conditions, as I mentioned earlier, where the same data was being interacted with. But if you go and ask the AI to create a custom breakpoint, it will do it. And we are running out of time over here. What's that? We're running out of time over here. So a custom breakpoint, if you're watching, take a screen capture of this page. Use this as the prompt, and this will generate a breakpoint very close to this. It counts how many elements are in the page, and it will also tell you what the page was, where the method we came from. And although it says unknown test, that's the last thing I want to do is there put that in the test. But the cool thing about this is that while it's sitting here watching to see if something went horribly wrong, you can put a mouse a movement of 5 pixels, and it'll say, okay, I'm not going to do anything. I'll just wait for you. If you see it and you click on it and you want to pause it, you can do that and do some debugging. If not, we can let it just go forward. And the final bonus, I think you may have seen, I'm going to go back to my last item over here. I'm going to go run these 2 test cases concurrently. We should get 2 browsers to pop up. There they are. And when you're doing a demo, you definitely want to have 2 browsers actually separate so you can see them. It looks much better rather than sitting on top of each other. And this goes back to something called AutoIt. It's a project that was around for about 30 years. A whole bunch of network administrators used it because they wanted to automate putting in a whole bunch of names for new people or making major changes through a bunch of places. You can actually have the AI create something that says, go watch for this window. And I will go see if I've got AI up there. Do I have there it is. And you can go and say tool. We'll say go. It will give us this window. I'm going to go and switch back over here to our base, and I'm going to give this another run. And basically You can't get Selenium or Playwright to move the browsers correctly, but you can actually have the automation script in the background automatically move things back and forth. So you can show this during a demo. So you can definitely guarantee that you've got 2, 4, 8, however many browsers are running at the same time. I believe I'm looking for my alarm. It should be telling me I'm at the end. And that's why these things are going backwards and forwards. It's basically showing you that you've got multiple projects there. I've got 4 minutes left. So at this point, I should have said at the beginning, let's see.
We have a question. One question.
Yes, one question. It says hidden while screen sharing.
No. Yeah, sometimes it is, but I can read it for you. By the way, if anyone has a question in the meantime, while Paul is answering this question, feel free to go ahead and put it in the questions tab. So Charles says, can we use Claude or any other agentic AI to mitigate Selenium, Java, Cucumber framework and convert it to Playwright, JavaScript, or Cucumber?
Yeah, you can. The best way I can think of is actually just to go there. There is a little caveat here. One of the things with your IT department maybe is sharing your IT with an AI, which could be a big no-no. But what I think you can do, 2 ways you can do it. One, you could just basically go over to Claude and paste in the code. Now, I will say from my personal experience, people will freak out when your application code gets put out there. Now, please do not do that. But automation frameworks, dude, there's hundreds and thousands of us, and we basically build the exact same application over and over. So I'm not too concerned about PI or information being sent out to an AI when we're doing that. But the same thing is you can go and I'll hit cancel on this and put the code in here and say, hey, convert to we said Cucumber. I'm going to do that. Or as some of us may want to convert from Cucumber back. And I think also the question referred to, hey, I wrote this in Ruby and now I want to convert it to JavaScript. How can I do that? And look at this. I said convert to Cucumber, and it says, well, first we need to install it. Yes, absolutely, you can do it, and it is super fast. And another one of the recommendations I suggest you guys do. Guess what? We're at the last minute. Or was there any other questions we had there, Dr. Magdi?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I don't see any other questions. So I know Paul closed his presentation by he said, I'm going to give you a bonus. Well, guess what? My marketing guy here behind me is pushing me to give you a bonus as well. I don't like to do this in our free webinars because we always want to keep our free webinars technical. But he asked me to tell you that he just created a promo code, Agentic AI, which gives you or anyone in your organization 30% off until Monday, end of the business day. Starting Tuesday, it's going to be only 20% off. Agentic AI, one word, is the promo code. Go to IIST website. As I said, we have over 120 courses. You can use this promo code to register for online self-paced or online interactive, or even you can use it if you were to host one of the courses for your team at your organization or online. Agentic AI, one word, 30% off, as he says, until the end of the day on Monday, 20% off starting Tuesday until the end of the week. I don't like to do this again, but my marketing guy said we should have the opportunity, we should take the opportunity to do that. So my apology for doing that. All right. Thanks to all of you for being with us today. I'm really grateful that Paul had the time. He's a very busy man, by the way. And hopefully we'll convince him to do another webinar sometime soon. As you can tell, he's very detailed, very technical. Sometimes I get lost when I speak with him because of the level of detail he's at. And Sometimes, seriously, it goes over my head. So I don't tell him that, but that
I'm
is it.
right here. I'm right here, literally.
All right.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Dr.
Yeah.
Mike. I appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate your knowledge, your experience. You're amazing, man. Thanks again to everyone. Thanks to you, Paul. We'll see you in future webinars. By the way, this webinar is being recorded and you will get a link you can share with any associate or colleagues. You also will receive an evaluation of this webinar about an hour from now, I believe. We really appreciate if you take the time and provide your feedback. Thank you.